Welcome, everyone! In this video, we will be talking to you about evaluating the design and implementation of controls. In this case, it's important that we verify each individual control attribute, which will require us to review various underlying documentation, which we need to document accordingly to ensure that all information is evidenced correctly. This can be time-consuming to reference and complex to review if it's not documented well. And as we'll have to do this for many controls, it can be very repetitive in nature. In this use case, we'll show how DataSnipper can help you. We start by selecting the instance of our control and importing all documents for review. On the payment batch, we snip our sample details using snipping. Subsequently, we can go through the other files very quickly and easily using the Smart Search and Search and Snip, to subsequently conclude using the validation or exception snip to verify the sign-off. We'll be going through the various attributes by means of this example file, which we have in front of us, which showcases the various aspects of the control in itself and the individual attributes. We'll start off by importing our documents, which we can do by clicking on Import Documents and selecting all the files we need. We can import all different types of files, such as PDFs and images. We click on Open, and upon import, DataSnipper will be accessing these files. Whenever it encounters that the files don't have any recognized text, it will prompt the OCR capabilities, which we can simply apply to ensure that all the files become searchable. It's always important to make sure that all the files have been imported, as these will become viewable in the document viewer. By using the drop-down, we can navigate to the respective files. In the event that you want to make sure that all the text has been recognized, we can manually prompt text recognition to see the text statuses and run it for any of the individual files we still might need. With all the files included, we see that all the buttons are now available, and we can simply start documenting the use case. We will be going through each of the individual attributes. And Attribute 1 requires us to inspect the payment batch. We'll start off by inspecting the batch date, where we want to bring in information. And for that, we can use the text snip by simply drawing it over the field we want to extract. We'll notice that it automatically formats it as a date and links it directly to the underlying supports. We'll repeat that for the batch total, where again it brings in the information and formats it accordingly. Then for the last step of Attribute 1, we also want to make sure that we can identify which of the invoices would require further inspection. And again, we can use the text snip to bring in the information. We now see that the document is referenced accordingly within our Excel file, allowing us to very quickly and efficiently see all the information. Simply use the Smart Search functionality to see where that invoice number is mentioned in other files, and use the Search and Snip button to bring in the details we need. As we want to make sure that the invoice is indeed calculated correctly, we'll use the Sum snip to recalculate the total to see if it indeed is accurate. And subsequently, we'll move on to the last step, which is verifying if approval is given on the project itself. While inspecting the file, we see there's not sufficient information. So here, we might want to flag it as an exception to indicate that something's wrong and that further inspection is required. To provide additional details, we'll use the comment functionality to add more context as to why we added the exception snip to make it easy for our reviewers. Once the comment is included, we'll then proceed to the remaining files to make sure that there are no other discrepancies that we might need to follow up on before concluding on the design and implementation of this control. So we'll move over to the SEPA batch. Again, using the drop-down, we'll inspect the sign-off. But as we already know, there is no appropriate approval provided yet. We're not sure if the approval was provided correctly, so we'll use an exception snip again, as all the executions of the attributes need to be fully traceable. We'll therefore link to snips by holding the Control key down on the same cell, evidencing the sign-off and the remark which, based on current documentation we've seen, has not been able to be evidenced. And as our last step, we'll check on Attribute 5 to see if the amount of the batch total was paid out correctly, even if approval might not have been given. We want to make sure that we trace this down to spot any further discrepancies. We'll simply use the Search and Snip feature again, using the text snip to bring in all the information we need. And as you can see, we've now documented the full trail of our design and implementation of this control, where we've identified some exceptions. So a reviewer can simply click on the various snips to see what we've referenced, what comments might have been included, and where we might need to add more documentation to verify the effectiveness. DataSnipper has allowed you to document this efficiently and provide efficiency in review. Thank you for watching this video. Happy snipping!